Okay, I'm finally getting around to the next indie spotlight, and this time it will be about Slay the Spire. I'll spare everyone the lengthy story of why it took so long, but short version, some other news items came up that were more pressing and I just couldn't fit it in. But fortunately, this type of video doesn't have a time constraint and can be made whenever works best. Slay the Spire is excellent. I want to make that clear right off the bat. The whole point of these indie spotlight videos is to draw focus towards a project that is well developed, incredibly creative, and otherwise extremely deserving of a player's time and money. If you are expecting my usual tone of criticism, that won't be present today. And in place of it, I'll be telling you a bunch of different reasons why Slay the Spire is great, it is fun, it is worth buying, or at the very least, worth evaluating further to see if you may be interested. So what is this game? Basically, it's a dungeon crawler turn-based card game with some visualizations on top of that. If I had to make a comparison, I would say it's a sort of hybrid creation that combines aspects of any typical card game like Hearthstone, Magic, etc., with a relic system such as the Binding of Isaac and a final randomly generated dungeon, or in this case tower, that you climb through making various choices and fighting monsters along the way. The game's dynamic is pretty simple. You start with basic cards while building up your deck over time, increasing its power, and also rapidly diversifying its effects. Along the way, you will also find relics, which can impact a variety of factors such as energy, armor, damage, etc. And through the combination of cards and relics, you produce the best possible loadout to fight all the way through the tower. On a surface level, this might seem like a really simple game. In a way, it is at first, but over time it gets clearer and clearer that the amount of depth here is unbelievable. Right now, with the most current version, there are 4 different characters, and each character might seem rather guided at first, but the more you play, the easier it becomes to branch out and understand just how many options exist. For instance, the background footage right now is the Ironclad, a strength-based physical damage character that might seem at first to have a pretty limited set of functions, but that could not be further from the truth. Now, sadly, a lot of my runs never got recorded. This is very old footage from when I was only on the first couple of Ascendancy ranks, and I'll talk about Ascendancy later on. In the footage I do have, the run that's displayed right now in the background, I built my deck almost purely in an offensive capacity. I had tons of strike cards, which would stack the damage of a perfect strike ability, which would then get duplicated by a particular relic called the Necronomicon, and the result was that I could very often one-shot enemies, even the bosses, with hundreds of damage turn 1. If I got lucky. I did need a certain degree of luck there. But in the early stages of the game, when I didn't know better, I assumed this was probably the right way to play the Ironclad. However, over time, that perception dramatically changed. At one point, I was able to construct a deck purely based around blocking and defensive mitigation, which dealt damage to enemies based on how often they attacked me. It was completely different, perhaps even more effective than the previous Perfect Strike build, and it was a true wake-up call which redefined both my expectations from the game and also my tactics. Slay the Spire is at its best when you embrace the randomness. There is a great deal of choice, yes, to be sure, but the combinations of relics and cards, increasingly diverse over time as you unlock ranks with the 4 characters, make it such that no run will ever really be the same. Chasing that sort of continuity, attempting from an early stage to build up that particular deck that you know works and is fun, it might seem appealing or effective, but usually it's not. Far more effective, and also far more enjoyable, is to just embrace the fact that this game throws you into a familiar tower with familiar enemies, at least it will all become familiar after a few runs, and gives you a set of choices or rewards that create entirely unique experiences within the framework of something well known. Even after dozens of runs, I was still finding combinations or tactics that made me excited. At one point with this very same character, the Ironclad, I had multiples of a card in the deck that doubled my block, and then a card to deal damage to enemies based on what my block number was. The result, when I got lucky, was hundreds and hundreds of damage. It was not an effective composition to chase, but it happened and it was extremely fun. This kind of diversity is consistent across the other characters as well. One is based on orbs and elemental channeling, another is based on stances such as Calm or Wrath, and the final character is based on poison, dexterity, and rapid attacks. The Silent, which is probably my personal favorite right now, had me completely redefine my decision-making process. At one point, it was about tons and tons of zero-cost shiv attacks. At another, it became about poisoning the enemy, then tripling that poison again and again until the damage became absurd. Even further, I had one particular run, and I'm so sad that I missed the opportunity to record this, where I got a card that made me intangible, which means you only take 1 damage at any given time, making you not fully immune, but damn close to it. And I could duplicate that card over and over so that my character was an absolute juggernaut with a dozen turns of near immunity, making even the most dangerous bosses almost completely harmless. Now, it may seem from this description that the game is too easy, but that is absolutely not the case. These runs are some of the rarer occurrences, where things just go perfectly towards an amazing outcome. Far more frequent are the tense and dangerous runs where each decision needs to be calculated and thought over. Combining the various status effects such as weakened, vulnerable, etc. on top of cards, artifacts, and potions means a nearly infinite number of ways to execute any given turn once you really get going. And that kind of control over the outcome puts many other card games to shame. The difficulty also ramps up over time as consecutive runs get completed. What starts out as a simple 3-act campaign turns into a 4th act, which I won't spoil or really go into great detail here, but also becomes impacted by an overarching system of Ascension. Ascension is merely the process of completing the game on the current difficulty, which progressively raises your rank and allows further runs with a modifier, such as more dangerous elites or a curse that gets added to your deck and can't be removed. You are free to choose what Ascension level you want to start a run at, and you can climb through these ranks with each character independently. I found that for my personal playstyle, it was easy to climb with the Ironclad, and significantly harder for me to do well with the other characters, at least right now. However, the character I enjoyed the most was the Silent. Now, on top of all of this, which is the base functionality of a game that through effective yet simple design allows for dozens of hours of enjoyment and replayability, there is open source modding. The PC community for Slay the Spire has built some absolutely amazing mods that can be added to the game. There are entire characters, functionality mods for the shop. I wouldn't even know really where to begin, so if you are someone who likes to add mods to your games, take everything I have previously said and throw it out the window, because you can change the game in hundreds of different ways to be even better than what I described. To be clear, the base experience, which is available on all platforms, is already exceptional. However, if you are on PC, the world of possibilities as a result of the amazingly consumer-friendly decision to allow community modding becomes infinitely larger. I did not do very much modding myself. I still have a lot more to do in the base game before I even feel a desire to do so, but the option is there and it's very much appreciated. The fundamentals of card type are also probably worth mentioning. As the Ironclad, there's not a significant degree of overlap with the other characters. Same with the Silent or the Defect or the Watcher. Each of these characters is predominantly finding cards and a certain number of relics also that only relate to their character. On top of this, the balancing is excellent. As you play as any one character, it almost always feels daunting but never out of reach. Rewarding but not too easy. That means the game has been successfully balanced 4 different times by the developers, and on PC a few times by the community as well for the well-made character mods that are out there. And in a world where mechanical balancing in half of the games that come out nowadays is botched beyond belief, it really is a breath of fresh air. Now, to go a bit further, there is card overlap in the form of neutral cards. These neutral cards can come up from any character, for any character rather, but are much harder to tap into, and as I developed a better understanding of each character's individual set of options, the possibilities of these neutral cards at shops or in certain events became yet another source of diverse compositions. On top of the base mode, there is a daily challenge mode, which means you won't really have to simply play the same Ascension level over and over again if you get stuck, unless you want to, or switch characters or whatever else. You also have the option to check out the challenge modifier, which helps create goals for you to keep the gameplay fresh. For price tag, $25 on all the platforms I looked up at this time, you are getting a game that can put similarly priced $60 titles to absolute shame in terms of design quality and replayability. I am on the low end of the spectrum with many hours invested already, hundreds more to go, most likely, and I don't even come close to the others who fell in love with this title. In addition to that, the game does not have the same grind-based throttling components that many other card games or deck builders possess. Sure, there is a bit of that for the first 4 ranks of character progression, but in terms of card packs or purchasing enough material to flesh out a library from which to draw and build a deck from to play with, it's a different model. When you buy Slay the Spire, you are not buying something with holes in its gameplay loop designed to keep the option of further payments active. You are buying something self-contained, wholly deserving, brilliantly made, and if anything, on PC, undervalued because the community modding has so much potential. As with any RNG-based game, there will be moments of frustration, possibly a rage quit here and there when things really don't go your way, but that itch in the back of your mind for one more run, just one more run, that's always there because despite the possibility of inconvenient luck, the overwhelming majority of runs are supremely enjoyable. With all that said, I am thrilled to add Slay the Spire to my list of indie spotlights because I don't often feel the desire to play games just for myself, play them off stream, or play them without a built-in factor for content coverage. I do still play games, but it's also my job, that's just a fact. A lot of the time I play a game to review it, or to play to understand an issue, or to get footage, any number of reasons. But with Slay the Spire, a friend recommended it to me, I tried it out, fell in love, and then after the fact, while still playing purely for my own enjoyment, decided it was deserving of an indie spotlight. On top of that, I'll continue to play this game long into the future because it's just that good. But that's it. Slay the Spire is worth checking out if you have any interest at all in turn-based roguelike card games. Even if you don't, it's probably still worth considering. It really is that good. As always, there are links down below: merch, Patreon, Twitter, other social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.